Hey friends, it's Robin. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing my top 10 most disappointing books of the year. Two really quick things. First of all, I'm getting over strep throat, so hopefully my voice isn't too terrible. It does like cut in and out a little bit, but I need to get these videos filmed because we are a week into January and I haven't posted anything. Also, if the lighting is off or anything like that, I am filming at like 3:45 in the evening on a weekend, which I never do. So it's essentially dark outside. So I have all of my lights on, which are day bulbs, but the lighting might be weird. We're just rolling with what we have right now. So we are kicking off my end of the year series with my most disappointing books. I like to do these like in pairs. So we have a negative video followed by a positive video. So we're doing my most disappointing today. Tomorrow will be my most surprising, then my least favorite books, and then ending on my favorite books of the year. These are going to come back to back to back, so you will have a whole bunch of videos coming over the next couple of weeks. Essentially, January is being condensed down into 3 weeks of videos since I wasn't able to post anything while I had strep, which means that this month is going to be pretty chaotic. So hopefully it all works out and things don't have to get cut because there's a lot of end of the year and like New Year things that I want to do that just ended up having to get pushed back from the holidays and then me getting sick. So hopefully we can make it work. This list is going to be ranked from my number 10 to my number 1 most disappointing. The number of books in each of these end of the year videos is going to be a little bit different. I didn't choose like a set number. I just kind of let the list of books guide how many books was on each list. So this one is a 10 book list. And I do want to mention that this video is very different than my least favorites. This isn't necessarily books that I disliked or hated or anything like that. These are just books that I had really high expectations for that didn't quite live up to those expectations. So we have everything from like a 3.5 star to a DNF on this list. So there's a wide range, and quite a few of these books I did end up liking. They just didn't live up to the hype or my expectations for them. So let's get right into it. Starting at number 10, we have Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRoux. This I put at number 10 because it's not that I disliked this book. It's not that this book like didn't work at all for me. I ended up giving this book like a 3.5 star. I enjoyed my time reading this book, but this book has been so hyped in like the fantasy romance community. This blew up on TikTok and like it was fine. I don't think it did anything unique or outstanding. I didn't think that anything in it was exceptionally well done. I didn't think the romance was that fantastic. The steamy scenes left a little bit to be desired, in my opinion. It was a book I read. It's just not one I feel strongly about, and so I guess I don't understand why this book got so popular and so hyped, because I felt nothing about it. I know that there are more books in the series. I will not be continuing them because they actually all follow the same plot, and you're just getting the same like story arc from a different couple's point of view, and I just don't care enough to continue on. So this one was a disappointment only because like I don't understand the hype, I guess. Like it wasn't bad. But like, why is this one so popular? Number 9 is Raiders of the Lost Heart by Joe Segura. This one makes me really sad. It makes me really, really sad because I wanted to love this book so desperately. I, along with everyone else, was so excited when I saw this cover, when I heard the synopsis for this. I love archaeology in general, and so the idea of this being like a archaeology action-y rom-com just spoke to my soul, and I don't feel like this book delivered in anything that it did. I feel like it just didn't commit to what it wanted to be, and instead it tried to do a bunch of things, and it ended up being mediocre at all of the things that it tried to be. So it didn't go far enough into like the action. It didn't go far enough into the rom-com side, like the rom or the com. Like this book wasn't funny, it wasn't actiony, it wasn't swoony. Never committed to like the tone of the story, and so I felt literally nothing about it. It's sad because this premise had so much potential, and it could have been a hit, and it wasn't. In a similar vein is Do Your Worst by Rosie Danan. I have been hyped for the next Rosie Danan book since I finished The Intimacy Experiment because that book was a 5-star book, and this one was just a bummer. Like, this is a 3-star book, and it's the epitome of a 3-star book. It's something I read. It was something that was fine, and it is something that I will literally never think about again unless otherwise prompted. I have so few feelings about this book. Talking about this book is honestly boring because I don't have anything to say about it. Our heroine and hero had an enemies to lovers, opposites attract romance that did nothing for me. I don't think that it was well developed. It was one of those romances where you're like, I don't understand why you two like each other. You don't communicate well. You don't get along. Like, why do you want to be together in the first place? Like, I don't understand. This didn't, again, go far enough anywhere. Like, it didn't wholly commit to like the hate sex. It didn't wholly commit to the curse thing, because at the end it ended up like taking this weird like fae route, and this book ended up being nothing, and I am left feeling nothing about it. Number 7 is Starling House by Alix E. Harrow. This was actually a book I DNF'd at the halfway point because I cared so little about this book. I loved Alix E. Harrow's debut novel. It was one of the first arcs that I ever read. It was one of the first arcs I got approved for on NetGalley, and I fell in love with that book because of Alix E. Harrow's writing, and I have literally not liked anything that she has written since, and I think that might be a sign that it's like a one-hit wonder for me. I read the like little novella series that she did, or well, I read the first book and decided not to continue. And then this felt far more like that book than what its actual pitch and description and synopsis was. Like, this was pitched as like this eerie, gothic, dark, romancy sort of story. And instead it ended up being like fairy tale good versus evil. And I didn't care. I didn't feel, again, that like, this book went as far as I wanted it to. The themes and the messages, I really wasn't getting on board with, and I wasn't enjoying where it was heading. And then the like romance turning point was just too sudden, and I was left feeling like this book bamboozled me into picking it up because it didn't deliver at all on what it had intended. And like the eerie, creepy, haunted house sort of aspect was so underutilized, and then it like didn't end up being that anyways. Another one that makes me really sad is number 6, which is Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by Ashley Herring Blake. I gave so many Ashley Herring Blake books 5 stars, and I considered her like a guaranteed 5-star author for me. I loved Delilah so much, and Astrid was like okay, and I really didn't care for this one. I think I gave this one like a 3-star. Part of it is like the story itself, and part of it is Ashley Herring Blake's writing in this one. So first of all, my biggest gripe with this book is that the friends in here, not Iris's friends, like Delilah and Claire and all of them, are wonderful, but the other heroines' friends are utter and complete trash. Throw them in the garbage. They don't deserve rights, okay? Like, why was she friends with them? They all treated her like trash. They all treated her like a child. Like, no one gave her the benefit of the doubt. No one expected her to have, like, the ability to tell anyone what she wanted or, like, know what she wanted. They kept trying to tell her what she wanted and what she deserved and needed. I was so mad at them, like, the whole time. And she keeps listening to their crappy advice and then forgives them in the end. And I'm just like, why? They don't deserve your forgiveness, and they don't deserve your friendship. On top of that, I didn't like the romance at all. This was another case of like, why do you like each other? I read the whole thing. I don't understand why you like each other. But on top of that, I feel like Ashley Herring Blake in both this and Astrid Parker was not writing to her audience. Who are you writing this book for? This is the 3rd book in a sapphic romance series. We are this far in, and the author is explaining to me why pronouns are important. It felt very strange because the people that are picking up this book are not new at this point to queer romances. So why are we having the blatant on-page heavy-handed discussion about why pronouns are important and why you need to ask and like all of this? Like, you're just preaching to the choir at this point. This isn't the first book in a series. You're not reaching like a new audience with this book. And so it just felt pandering and heavy-handed and not at all relevant to the story or the themes. And I didn't like it because I was just like, why are we adding this in here? It's uncomfortable because you're not doing it in a way that feels organic to these characters or to this story. And it feels like you were like, oh yeah, that's right. I need to talk about gender and identity in here. And it's like it didn't feel good. I didn't like it. It's one of those things where it's like I probably would have looked past it if I had loved this romance, but when it's all of those things like stacked on top of each other, they all end up feeling like a bigger deal than what they really are. And so this one just left a lot to be desired, and I am hesitant for the next Ashley Herring Blake. I'm still gonna pick it up because I am always looking for more sapphic romances, and there's just like not enough of them. So I will definitely be picking it up, but I'm really hoping to get back to the feeling that I had with Delilah. So fingers crossed. Number 5, and from here on out, I don't know, I had stronger feelings about these ones. Fae Princes by Nikki St. Crowe. What happened? What happened here? Like, it was like a whole new author wrote this book, I swear. This is what, the 3rd or 4th book in the Lost Boys, is that what it's called, series? The first however many books, I think it's a 4-book series if I'm remembering correctly. The first couple of books are just a ridiculous good time. They are over the top and silly. They're one of those books that you pick up and you go into to have a good time. There's wild antics and tons of ridiculous sexy times, and all of the characters are completely outrageous, and you go into it for the good time. And this book had none of it. There was no good times to be had in this book. It was just however many pages of Pan walking around moping and all the other characters standing in the kitchen talking about how Pan is walking around moping. And like, that was it. There was none of the shenanigans. Where was the crazy antics that I had in the first 3 books? Because it wasn't in here. And then on top of that, you had this like build up to this like final confrontation, and the whole thing was done in like 3 pages. And it was so silly, and not in a fun way, because we spent so much time watching Pan walk around throwing a pity party. I felt so anticlimactic, and I'm sad about it. The spin-off is not going to be Hook and the Crocodile, but it's going to be MMF, and we need to leave the darlings out of it. Like, they're bringing the story down, and it should really just be Hook and the Crocodile. I've had enough of the darlings. They're not delivering. Number 4 is The Stars Are on Our Side by Jennifer Hartmann, which is the spin-off to Still Beating and Lotus. This book I gave a very generous 3 stars, and I think the only reason I gave it 3 stars is because I have like an emotional investment in these characters, because Still Beating and Lotus were 5-star reads for me. But this book was a hot mess. This book needed an editor. It needed things to be dialed back and cut out. Like, somebody needed to be ruthless in the editing of this book, because things were in here that didn't need to be in here. We're following this heroine who goes through this hella traumatic event, like super dark and intense, and she is coping or attempting to cope with the trauma and PTSD of this insanely traumatic event. And then the hero has this stupidly silly side plot thrown in, and it felt like it completely cheapened the story. It took away from the working through of the trauma and like the intensity of the heroine's story. And I saw what the author was trying to do in the paralleling of the emotions that our heroine felt in that past situation versus this like current situation. But I think there was a better way to do it that didn't distract from the story and make it feel so silly, because that plot was stupid. Like, I'm sorry, it was so dumb. It didn't need to happen. All of it was completely unnecessary. Also, this book is too long. This book is like 400 pages, and both Still Beating and Lotus are like just shy of 300. And so like, why was this book 400 pages long? Because it didn't need that. In fact, it could have taken away the hero's side plot, could have gotten some actual romantic development, because so much time was spent on this silly side plot that like you never actually got to see their romance develop from friends to more, because all of the emphasis was on some of this other silly nonsense. Number 3 is probably going to be the one that hurts the most people the most. It's Pucking Around by Emily Rath. Why do so many people love this book so much? I do not understand the hype for this book, like, at all. I don't think this book did anything exceptionally well. Like, I don't think the steamy scenes were done well. I found them very cringy. I found the dialogue very cringy. I thought the insta-love in this book was so much. Like, it came on so strong. These two were like soulmate level from the moment they lock eyes, and I could not get on board. I'm just like, why though? Like, why do you like each other? Why are we so invested in each other? You don't know anything about this person at all. And then the other hero, who is like a chronic self-sabotager, was obnoxious. The fourth guy that apparently everybody loves, like, I didn't understand why. Like, what is appealing about his grumpy ass? I don't know. And it wasn't like an endearing grumpy, it was just rude, and he forces himself on her at one point, and I was just like, where's the consent? But the pinnacle that made me put this book down was the sharing of bodily fluids from person to person. Not okay. Number 2 is a pair. It's Resting Witch Face and Griman Barrett by Juliette Cross. I did finish Resting Witch Face and I gave it like 2.5 stars, and I DNF'd Griman Barrett within the first chapter. What giant bombers to end off a series that I, up until this point, really enjoyed. I gave like all of the previous books 5 stars. I hated these 2 last books. Like, what happened? The problem with these 2 books is if you are going to build up a romance to be this like forbidden sort of thing, will they, won't they, all this angst, you can't kick off the book with an insta-love romance. It felt like I was strung along to get an insta-love romance. Why did we spend so much time discussing the fact that these 2 can't be together or don't want to be together, and here's all of these roadblocks, only to throw it all away and make it an insta-love romance from page 1 of their book? I felt robbed by this story. I could not figure out why the author took that approach 2 times in a row. I'm like, did you just not know how to get to the 6th book? Like, is that what this was? Like, you just didn't know how to prolong it and make it last? Like, just pop back in time or something if you didn't know how to do it. Like, where was the buildup? Where was the angst? Where was the drama? I needed that buildup to be worth it, and I feel like it was just completely thrown out the window. And then my number 1 most disappointing book is my most disappointing book because not only did I not enjoy the book, but it has me questioning an author that was an auto-read author for me, and that's The Bone Collector by Onley James. I talk about this pretty extensively in a vlog in a recent reads, so I'm going to link that down in the description box because I want to keep this short and sweet because I don't want to talk about this book anymore, in all honesty. But I found this book to be extremely fetishizing in its characterization, and it is becoming a pattern, in my opinion, with Onley James books. This is the 2nd book in a row that felt this way, and she does have 1 more coming yet, and to me 3 is a pattern, and I am not the only one that thinks so, and there are plenty of Own Voices reviews over on Goodreads talking about all the different ways that the culture was misrepresented and the characterizations and how they were harmful and all of that. So the Goodreads will also be linked down below, but that is by far my most disappointing book. Not because the book itself was the most disappointing, but because this author has been a favorite author of mine. It's an author that I've recommended multiple times on my channel, and now it is an author that I will not be picking up anymore, and that is highly disappointing. So that is it for my most disappointing books of 2023. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of these books. As always, if your favorite book is on this list, this is not a personal attack against you, your family, or your dog. We can have a difference of opinion on these books. They're just books that personally didn't work for me. There is a book out there for everyone, and every book has its audience. So if you did love one of these books, I'm very sorry for bashing on one of your favorites. Thank you all so much for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, I will see you in my next one. Bye.